Ja, und jetzt, nachdem wir darüber gesprochen haben, welche Möglichkeiten für innovative Technologien es auch in Afrika gibt, gibt es jetzt hier eigentlich auch die perfekte Überleitung zu unserem nächsten Thema. Und zwar freue ich mich da, William Adderholt vom Grand Farm Project zu begrüßen. William ist von Hause aus Soziologe und Programmleiter des Grand Farm Project. Das Grand Farm Project wird von Microsoft unterstützt und hat in Fargo im US-Bundesstaat North Dakota im April 2019 an Fahrt aufgenommen. Es handelt sich dabei um ein Netzwerkprojekt, das durch moderne Technologien, Weiterbildung und Innovationen die wichtigsten Herausforderungen in der Agrarwirtschaft meistern will, nämlich die Ernährung einer wachsenden Weltbevölkerung, den Fachkräftemangel in der Agrarwirtschaft, den Mangel an Finanzinvestoren im Sektor und die Arbeitssicherheit. Now I'm happy to welcome William Adderholt. William is program leader at the Grand Farm Project. The Grand Farm Project started and took up speed in 2019 in Fargo in North Dakota. It is a network project which started in the US, but is aiming big and worldwide, and even, yeah, not only restricted to the Earth, but probably William will say more about this. And it is a network project seeking to master the following challenges in agriculture: feed a growing world population, address labor shortage in agriculture, attract venture capital, and fill workforce skill gaps in agriculture. William, you are now here to present us about this initiative. And now the floor is yours. Please take us through the farm project, the Grand Farm Project.
Thank you for the great introduction. As you mentioned, my name is William Adderholt. I'm the Grand Farm Program Manager. And, you know, my time in this role has been about a year. This is a new, fresh project. We're excited to talk about it. There's been an exciting momentum over the last year and everything that's happened with Microsoft, for instance. For me, this project, before we get into it, was really exciting coming off of a PhD in sociology, being able to look at how we could change the world in terms of agriculture, really 1 year at a time in terms of projects we could do, allowing technology to progress, being excited about innovation, but also to look at things like rural communities and how this technology could impact rural communities throughout the world. In terms of the Grand Farm, we were inspired by the moonshot goal of going to the moon when we thought about it. Initially, the project was set to create an autonomous farm demonstration that people could see from around the world how technology could progress. We realized that was a smaller project or problem than we initially thought it was. There was already great examples throughout the world of demonstrations of autonomous technology in agriculture and how it was already impacting commercial operations. In terms of the Grand Farm, we started, the concept was launched in March 2017. Emerging Prairie, which is the parent organization of the Grand Farm, is an ecosystem builder. They bring people together from both locally, regionally, globally to talk about big ideas in entrepreneurship, innovation, technology. At 1 Million Cups, which is an event where people come together on a weekly basis to talk about their journey through entrepreneurship, Barry Batchelor, who is a bigger entrepreneur in terms of Fargo, asked the question, what is our major? When we think about a regional community like Fargo, North Dakota, which is relatively small, how can we make a global impact? And how can we really matter to the people around the world? There was a lot of great ideas and a lot of bad ideas. We thought about a robot parade at one point. We thought about how do you build an agriculture technology ecosystem, but everything kind of centered around this idea that agriculture technology was really our place that we could contribute. North Dakota has a rich history and tradition in agriculture. We have a North Dakota State University here, which has a large agriculture campus, but also a lot of tech innovation with John Deere and companies like Apario and Bushel in our local communities. The next year at TEDx Fargo, we had Barry Batchelor up on the stage, but also Brad Smith, who was the president of Microsoft, who is the Microsoft president. And they both discussed key issues that were happening in agriculture. And this only served as more of a driver for what we wanted to accomplish. Brad Smith talked about the digital divide, the existence of gaps in opportunity just based on where you live and the digital infrastructure that surrounds that. And Barry Batchelor talked about the possibility of how a region can come together with strengths to build something special. For us, the Grand Farm was sprouted from those two ideas. How do you begin to look at the future of farming? And how do you make it such a big problem that today feels small? We recognize that if we thought about the project too small, we'd almost feel daunted. And we wanted to have some larger milestones. So the first milestones we set aside were that we would get to this idea of next generation agriculture, which I'll talk about in North America by 2025, globally by 2030, and then looking at low and zero gravity farming by 2035. And the 2035 date was in alignment with some of the discussion that had happened in space agriculture around when the trips to the moon and Mars would be occurring. In discussions with NASA, for instance, there's an understanding that you can't send food to those places, you need to grow it there. And so there's a great opportunity for innovation in those areas. When we thought about Fargo, I mentioned a lot of this, but really how we could take the expertise, the demand, and then also fit that into the opportunity that existed within our community. We talked about having a rich ecosystem already established with places like Apario and John Deere Electronic Solutions, but also North Dakota State University. But then there's also the demand. We recognize that we needed skilled workers, not just in agriculture, but in technology. And we recognize that there needed to be efficiency in the system if we wanted to take on a challenge, which I'll describe, of feeding 10 billion people across the planet in the next 30 years. And so there was an opportunity to build this right and really start now.
William, do you have any slides for us to show?
Are you not? Oh, I apologize. Here, let me, can you see my slide deck now?
Now we see a slide deck. We're all set.
Thank you so
Perfect.
much. I'm gonna, at this point, I'll just go back just 2 really quick, and it won't, but we'll start here. But this is our discussion of the future of ag and really the larger moonshot, our timetable of when we started to where we are now, with the idea coming online March 2017, and us not even breaking ground on the Grand Farm project until April 27th, 2019. These were the pictures of the TEDx conference. Some fun pictures of space ag and agriculture throughout the world. But here's where we're at now. So the discussion about designed around challenges. So when we're thinking about the Grand Farm, we recognize that one of the issues that had been happening in agriculture as one of the last industries to innovate and adapt to the new technologies that were occurring was that people were taking solutions from one sector and then moving them and then just trying to apply them in agriculture, and that wasn't working. We were feeding growers these ideas that maybe worked in supply chain operations, but doesn't make sense in the really unique world, the really unique global settings that farmers live in. So the 5 challenges that we wanted to address through this project were: first, feeding a growing population. So how do you feed a growing world population expected to hit 10 billion people by 2050? A key part of that is how do you do so sustainably as well? With the increase in people, how do you also not just destroy the dirt and the land and everything like that to come across those solutions? We wanted to address an agriculture labor shortage. So looking at everything from farm turnover, where we have an aging workforce, we have barriers at entry, and then we've also got rural community out migration. A lack of venture capital in agriculture technology. Agriculture technology has a very disparate lack of venture capital, especially where this project's centered in the Midwestern United States. And then a workforce skills gap. Microsoft made a report at the beginning, probably like in May, when they were talking about workforce development, that by 2025, worldwide, there will be 150 unfilled software development jobs, 150 million software developer jobs that will go unfilled. And then agriculture safety as a major point for us. I have, I wish I had the pictures here, but I married into a farm family. I've done things on the farm that weren't so safe. I've climbed electrical poles, things like that, that we could have probably gotten a loader for, helped out with the cows, branding, things like that. For us, in terms of agriculture, we recognize it's a dangerous job, and it's not the most glamorous either. In the United States, it's a top 10 most dangerous job. But in places like the UK, it is the most dangerous job with the most fatalities per year. So we came across 5 strategies we wanted to accomplish. The first was to create a booming worldwide ecosystem in agriculture technology. So bringing people together from around the world to talk about these ideas, how we can actually address them, and really build out different pieces of the puzzle. We wanted to bring together an innovation platform that could bring together startups, research, acceleration, innovation with venture capital, a test site where we can innovate and explore new ideas, a program that could upskill the workforce, which ends up for us being a coding and robotics school, and then policy. Looking at policy around things like data ownership and data privacy and autonomous systems, and how barriers currently exist in different settings to next generation technology in agriculture existing. I'm not going to go through this slide, but for the most part for everyone, this is just kind of how we approach this large problem, and how we broke it into very small parts. What I will talk about a little bit is the roadmap. I told you this project is about 18 months old since we cut the ribbon on the Grand Farm at the very beginning. The U.S. Department of Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue came out to do that. Since then, we've had some amazing opportunities. First, we've built relationships around the world with some really interesting organizations. Sardi from South Australia, I have a call with every month. The Cane Network out of Canada, Agri Epicenter out of the UK, just some fascinating individuals who have history in this space doing amazing things. An innovation platform. So we actually went out to California and we recruited Plug and Play. Plug and Play is a global innovation platform, considered world-class in terms of venture capital, but they actually were part of Google's success story. And so we saw them as a great opportunity, and they actually brought a location to Fargo specifically for ag tech. In that, they bring 14 startups from around the world to Fargo, North Dakota every year, or every 6 months, apologies, so 28 per year that we can bring into our ecosystem. One great example was Agronomy out of South Australia, which I continue to do work with, but we had a co-presentation that we did together from Australia and the United States that had over 10,000 views in the first week, which was amazing. The Grand Farm test site. So we had a plot of land donated to us within 1 day of talking about this project, 45 acres donated to us. With that land, we were able to create projects. We had 40 innovative projects on the Grand Farm last year, 200 experiments across 9 different partners. We're already looking at 75 projects in 2021 across 30 partners, represented from around the world. Upskilling the workforce. We launched a coding school in 6 months that has already graduated 1 cohort. 12 out of the 13 students have been placed in jobs. The starting salary of these students before they entered the program was $24,000. The average exit, the average in terms of them finding a job only a month after graduation has been $50,000 per year salary. So it doubled their salary in a 20-week course. And I believe most of the students got scholarships, but the cost of that course was about $15,500. And finally, policy. We brought out the FCC chairman, Jip Pai, last November to the Grand Farm, and we brought rural stakeholders to the farm as well. And we had a great conversation about rural connectivity in the United States and the importance of broadband connectivity as it relates to precision agriculture, as well as rural revitalization. Due to that tour that Ajit Pai was on, $20 billion was allocated from the federal budget to address rural infrastructure needs in broadband. We continue having discussions with the FCC task force on precision agriculture almost on a monthly basis to talk about how they could address the needs of our rural communities, as well as the technology that will exist around the world here soon. I did mention that I would quickly talk about what we mean by the future of agriculture. This was one of the bigger issues I took on from my academic setting when I first came onto the Grand Farm. The first question we had was, okay, well, it's going to be an autonomous technology. And as I mentioned, that question was that answer was a little too small for us. When we looked at this slide deck has some language like farm of the future, and we talked about this idea that maybe that's egotistical if we're talking about having the farm of the future in Fargo, North Dakota, which represents maybe 0.1% of the farmers from around the world. And so we've changed language related to that, to the future of farming as a global kind of understanding of how technology can progress in different settings across different cultures and traditions. But for us, integration of systems was where we landed as what does that mean by the next generation of farming, the future of farming. And this is the connection between autonomous technologies, Internet of Things, and digitization of agriculture from the farmer all the way to the consumer. And so what we look at is the overall supply chain and how things can operate between those and really address those gaps. To break it down further, we broke our projects down into different chapters of the user story in areas like soil and crop management, autonomous systems, information flows, unmanned aerial vehicles and unmanned ground vehicles, farm of the future design, and then improving the human conditions. So the fast-hitting projects that actually can help humans today. And that's the end of the actual presentation. I know we were going to have a discussion, but here's my information if you're interested in contacting me directly, and we can have more of a discussion from there.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, William, for talking us through this very interesting and very large-scaled initiative. To all of you who are listening to us, if you do have any specific questions to William, please do not hesitate to ask them in our chat room. But in the meantime, William, I do have a question. You are tackling a lot of challenges. You are talking about a lot of big program, upskilling workforce, connectivity, digitization, the farm of the future, traceability throughout the work, throughout the value chain from farm to fork.
Yes.
And what I'm interested in is you started off the idea started in a rural community who were coming together to brainstorm and talk about their everyday challenges.
Yes.
How do you actually attract the everyday average farmer? Are they still on board, or do they sometimes think, well, you're being a bit too abstract here, I have my field work to do?
For us, it's not just about attracting the farmer, but going to where they live. And that actually is a pretty hard thing to do. For us, typically, if I'm working with an ag tech entrepreneur, they'd love to come to the Grand Farm and present on what they're doing. But there are farmers throughout the world in rural communities, even in North Dakota, I've never heard of. And to actually get access to those communities, show up at their local bar or something like that and have some great conversations, that's really how it starts. That's how you build the trust in the relationship where they continue to engage. We have worked with farmer cooperatives and checkoff organizations to interact directly with their growers as well. And so what that might look like is working with a company like CHS to have access to their grower network and talk about activity we would be doing with growers. So one of the three, so we have three different program types, but probably the most important to us is what's called our grower roundtables. We bring together growers on a regular basis, and we just ask them, what are some issues that you're running into in a themed area? So that might be connectivity.
Mhm.
So on your farm today, what are the issues that you're having in terms of connectivity? And growers will just rattle off. And what we do is we become the champion to start taking on some of those things. We put together a grower pain point report, and then we bring those pain points to our government partners, our higher education partners, and our industry partners, and we say, how can we start solving these now? And those become the priority. Those pain points become the priority and the foundation for the projects we actually do to get to the future of farming.
Okay, so you're actually specifically asking them how you could make their everyday life on the farm easier. And
Yes.
would you say that you are already at a stage where you have implemented certain actions that are actually helping the farmer on the field, or is it still in a kind of preparation stage?
We've done projects that I would say have reached farmers. I would say the biggest thing that we've done that probably helps out farmers the most is giving that information to the companies who are developing these applications. Grand Farm doesn't produce technology. We're the connector of technology. We're the connector of the research and the innovation, where if I know what company A is doing and researcher B are doing, I can bring them together into a neutral space where they can come together and innovate really quickly. But those insights from things like the grower pain points can drive innovation as well. An example is we had a company who was working on an application to provide insights to the farmer, and they were able to take those pain points and actually apply them into their development process before release. And then that way, when the growers actually got access to that, it was more aligned with their actual needs and not what the technologists perceived their needs were.
So you bring together farmers and technological companies at the stage of product development. So where they
Yes,
can still, so they don't have to wait for the farmer to say, well, I've bought your tool, but it's not working in this and that way. So yeah, I
exactly.
can see how they benefit in those ways. You say you're actually, you're interacting globally. With which countries are you already in touch?
Probably the most that we've been in touch has been with the UK, Canada, and South Australia. Those three have what we've been calling. There's no real name for what the Grand Farm does or what they do, but these future of farming concepts. So Agri Epicenter out of the UK, we have regular conversations with. Kane Network out of Canada, and then Sardi out of South Australia, who are all doing amazing things. But I'm new to this role, and I bet you there are more people out there than I know doing this work, and it'd be great to connect with them.
So you're open to connections everywhere
Oh
in the
yeah.
world. William, I got to look at the chat real quick if there's any further questions from our audience. That is not the case. So
Okay.
as we need to come to an end, I have just one final question. So you say you have some 75 projects lined up for 2021. Is
Yes,
there any particular projects which you are especially excited about, or
there
which is the
is.
most interesting to you or it's surprising to you?
Probably, so the project I'm most interested in works off the pain point that we're seeing in terms of weeds on the farm. And so weeds, each year you create a new herbicide to address weed management. Um, Unfortunately, the weeds become resistant to that herbicide very quickly through just different evolutionary mechanisms. Um, but what that does is for corn and like products like corn and soybeans, which have millions of acres throughout the world, hundreds of,
Mm.
it's profitable to make those new seeds and more new herbicides. For specialty crops or smaller acreage crops, it's not. You can't just keep creating a new herbicide to deal with the weeds, and you can't create the new seed variability or variations that can be resistant to the herbicides as well. So we're starting to develop out with North Dakota State University and other partners something called a crop agnostic solution for weed management, where we're taking a drone that can use computer vision to see the difference between weeds and crop. It doesn't matter what the crop is. Identify in real time those weeds, and then use something like a mechanical or a heat mechanism like a laser to destroy the weeds, so you don't have to worry or think about the herbicide use. And that will work in any crop environment. It could work on strawberries just like it would work on corn, because you're gonna drive the drone over it, and the drone's gonna automatically destroy those weeds. There are some products out there that do things that are similar, but those sort of crop agnostic solutions that have that also that sustainability aspect are really exciting to me.
Yeah, that's true. And let us know, keep us posted when it's ready out there for use, because as you might have heard of, we have the Green Deal coming up in the European Union,
Yes.
requiring farmers to substantially save in chemical pesticides, etc. William, thank you
Yes.
so much for being here today and sharing your insights about your big network, the Grand Farm, with us. So I understand it is all about identifying pain points and bringing together the different stakeholders who can help to address and solve them. So William, thank you very much. And well, have a pleasant day.
Thank you.
And we're excited to hear about when the Grand Farm comes to Germany.
Okay. Have a great day.
Thank you. Yeah, so also dann möchte ich mich auch bei Ihnen, bei euch allen fürs Zuhören hier heute, fürs Zuschauen hier heute bedanken bei dem Agrarthemenblog auf der Innovate. Wir haben viele spannende Initiativen kennengelernt. Wir haben mit Nicolas Barthelmé von Du bist hier der Chef, die Verbrauchermarke, darüber gesprochen, wie Verbraucher tatsächlich einen Einfluss auf Produktion und Produktionsstandards nehmen können und dabei auch noch Landwirte unterstützen können. Dr. Patrick Deufel von Infarm hat uns gezeigt, wie Salat, Kräuter und Co. mit geringem Wasserverbrauch direkt vor Ort und nahezu ohne Transportkilometer in vertikalen Minifarmen, die direkt in der Stadt produziert werden können. Wenn die jetzt noch den Energieverbrauch in den Griff bekommen, ist das tatsächlich auch eine nachhaltige Alternative der Landwirtschaft. Maximilian Moog von Joy und Dr. Andreas Helm von der Schwarzwaldmilch haben uns gezeigt, wie die Verbraucher via QR-Scan den Weg der individuellen Milchverpackung und von deren Ursprung auf dem individuellen Milchviehbetrieb bis in den Supermarkt, bis in den Kühlschrank verfolgen können. Maximilian von Wedel von House of Crops Unamera hat uns dann auch gezeigt, dass eine Vernetzung im digitalen Agrarhandel, eine Einigung auf einen Datenstandard, dass das sowohl zum Wohle der Unternehmen als auch zum Wohle der Handelspartner geschehen kann. Stichwort Vernetzung hat uns Professor Joachim Herzberg erläutert, welche Potenziale die europäische Cloud-Initiative Gaia X zur Vernetzung, und vor allem zu einer sicheren Vernetzung der europäischen Landwirtschaft bereithält. Dann ging es beim GIZ-Projekt Strategische Partnerschaften, Technologie in Afrika darum, innovative Technologieansätze aus Deutschland, aus Europa für die Landwirtschaft in Afrika auch bereitzustellen und dort Kontakte zu knüpfen. Und William Adderall schließlich hat uns gezeigt, dass man einfach gemeinsam mit den Landwirten, mit den Betroffenen bestimmte Probleme identifizieren kann und dann die richtigen Menschen zusammenbringen kann, um diese zu lösen. Ich bedanke mich bei euch allen, dass ihr dabei wart und hoffe, ihr habt viele Inspirationen mitgenommen. Jetzt beginnt aber der eigentliche Highlight des Tages mit dem Innovate Award für Startups aus den Bereichen Digital, Food und Agrar. Ich drücke allen Teilnehmern ganz feste die Daumen, wünsche euch noch einen schönen Abend und verabschiede mich an dieser Stelle. Und, das muss man ja heute zwingend dazu sagen, bleiben Sie alle gesund.